After completing my 10th class exams in 1979, my father suggested that I go and help my father's uncle and learns astrology. Mathematics being my favorite subject, I learned the calculations. My grandfather taught me how to calculate the inclinations of each planet and how to calculate the lagna and the meridian center MC, and he gave me some birth charts to draw. Thus, I learned how to draw the birth charts first and showed interest in predictions. So, my grandfather told me some predictions, some of the tips that he usually uses for predictions. And after learning those tips, I documented some of them. I verified with my father. While my father and my grandfather have laid the foundation for me to get interested in astrology, for almost a decade or 2 decades, I didn't show any interest. Welcome to my horoscope of the month. This month being November, I had chosen someone special other than the regular people, famous person who was born in November. For most of the Indians, when it comes to November, they think that the person, famous person born in November was Jawaharlal Nehru, the first prime minister, India's prime minister. I did googled and I found that there is another famous person who was born in November 1954, 14th November, the same day that Jawaharlal Nehru was born, on 14th November 1954, and her name is Condeleezza Rice, Dr. Rice. Dr. Rice was the Secretary of State during the Bush administration. She has a doctorate degree from Stanford University. She's right now working as a professor in Stanford University. So I felt that this native's chart, analyzing this native's chart, would be the right way to respect for her achievements in her life. So let me go and analyze her birth chart for her. What are the reasons for her to achieve such a highest degree? And also she had a career, like I would say, as for some time she worked as a in academics, then she entered the politics, and again she, after the Bush administration is over, she went back to Stanford University. So she had changes in her career. So I would like to analyze the reasons how in a person that career gets changed, and what are the reasons, astrological reasons behind that. Welcome to my next video presentation. In this presentation, I decided to emphasize the education abilities and the astrological reasons behind this native. This native is Dr. Condeleezza Rice. She was the Secretary of State during the President Bush administration. So I took her chart and I decided to go more in detail from an astrological perspective. What are the reasons for her to be so successful in her educational career, educational life? So first and the foremost, whenever you see a native's chart, basically from my side, what I look at it is the lagna or the ascendant. Here the lagna lord is Saturn, and Saturn is exalted and residing in the 10th house. 10th house deals with career. That tells you that the lagna lord, an exalted lagna lord in the 10th house, indicates that this native will be successful in her career. So for the native to be successful in career, there should be some support from when it comes to the education. So let's go and look at the Saturn, the first house lord. The Saturn is co-joined with Mercury, who is the lord of the 6th and the 9th houses, and Sun, the lord of the 8th house, but sun always deals with leadership or a career pertaining to government. And Venus deals with education pertaining to music, arts, or something similar to that one, and a career pertaining to entertainment industry. When you look at it, Saturn is exalted in the 10th house and Sun is debilitated in the 10th house. So the government related career is the law, the person who is responsible for that, the Sun, is in debilitated and weakened. And this itself tells you, and when you look at the Graha Yuddha or the planetary wars, as usual, based on the rules of Graha Yuddha, Saturn is always the winner, period. So, the first house lord is the winner in the 10th, residing in the 10th house. When you look at Sun, the native is strong when it comes to the soul because Sun is in the 10th house, even though it is debilitated, and the native will be a good communicator. And because Mercury, the 6th and the 9th house lord, is in the 10th house, and above all, because the first house lord is exalted, the native will be very, very determined. So, if the native has something in his or her mind to do it, the destiny, whatever the destiny the native has decided, the native will reach that destiny. Usually what happens is that when you look at Venus in the 10th, being the 10th house lord and residing in the 10th house, I have seen a lot of, most of the astrologers, both uh, early novice astrologers and some experienced astrologers, rushing to say that the native will have a career in entertainment industry. But before we do that, we just have to keep in mind that at the music, arts, creativity, which are the primary educational stuff that Venus supports, just being in the 10th house doesn't mean that entertainment industry is the only place where the native will shine. Just we have to keep that in mind. With Venus being the 5th house lord, you see there Venus is the 5th house lord, and Venus is having a direct aspect of the 4th house. So it indicates that a career in music, creativity, something that pertains to creativity, and since it joined with Sun and Mercury in the 10th house, a career where politeness, intelligent communications with higher officials. So these are this career of that type. And now with Saturn, the first house lord, being in the 10th house, indicates that that career will pertain to either work in a foreign land or work with people who belong to, who are foreigners. So overall, because Saturn is exalted and residing in the 10th house and co-joined with the most important planets, it tells you that this native has some sort of a career which is more towards music or creativity, and something that needs politeness and efficiency in communications, intelligent communicating techniques with the higher officials, and above all with foreign people, foreign land, in foreign land, working in foreign land, or working in her own country but dealing with foreign officials. So just looking at the first house lord, the way the first house lord is residing, with whom the first house lord has co-joined, and where the first house lord is aspecting. See, when you look at the first house lord and from this many different angles, when you look for the first house lord, we could guess so much about the native. Now let's go to the plan. How is the first house? Are there any planets in the first house? First house, Mars is residing in the first house. The very first thing you have to keep in mind is Mars is the lord of the 4th and 11th houses. 4th house is basic education, and 11th house is gains from education, from career, or vice versa, education too. And from Mars, its fourth aspect is on the fourth house, which is its own house. That means the fourth house is now became very strong with respect to Mars. And also it has a seventh aspect on the seventh house where Jupiter is residing, and the eighth aspect on the eighth house, which is empty but Sun owns it. Remember, Mars residing here, what it's called, it's a Capricorn. Mars residing in Capricorn indicates that it's in exalted position. So this is your second planet in the chart that is exalted position, and just keep in mind. We'll as we go further, we'll see what it is. So Mars being exalted indicates that the fourth house is became very powerful. So when you, from an education perspective, fourth house indicates basic education. You can take the basic education as all the way up to bachelor's degree. So from an education perspective, this native will not have any troubles completing her bachelor's degree. No issues like no stoppage in education or anything pertaining to education. There are no issues for her when it comes to basic education. Now let's go to and look at the fourth house, which deals with basic education. First and the foremost, the house is empty. Mars owns it, and as I said earlier, Mars residing in the first house is already aspecting the fourth house. And then all the four important planets residing in the 10th house are having a direct aspect on the fourth house. So look at the planets in the 10th house. Mercury, the Karaka for basic education, and when you look from Chandra Lagna or moon, Mercury is the fourth house lord. That's advantage for this native here. And because it is the fourth house lord from moon, and Mercury is the Karaka for a basic education, and Mercury is having a direct aspect on the fourth house from Lagna. All this tells you that there aren't any malefic planets apart from Mars having the aspect on the house. All this indicates that the native will have a smooth, unbroken basic education. When I say smooth, unbroken basic education, indicating that there are no possibilities for the native to fail or to stop their basic education. The basic education means all the way up to bachelor's degree. Now let's go and look at the fifth house, which deals with higher education. From the D1 chart, the fifth house deals with higher education. And here, Venus is the lord of the fifth and the 10th houses. And Venus is residing in the 10th house, its own house, and co-joined with three other planets. As I said earlier, in Graha Yuddha, Saturn defeats any other planet, or Saturn is the standard winner irrespective of who the other planets are. So, being the first house lord, Saturn is the one who decides what career this native has to choose. And because Saturn has co-joined with the fifth house lord and the other important planets, so the Saturn will make sure that the native will achieve the appropriate education, so that whatever the career that Saturn has chosen, the native will have the appropriate education for that career. Now let's go and look at the Jupiter is the Karaka for higher education, and Jupiter is the lord of the third house, which sometimes called as communication house for communications. So this might be the reason, it's just a possible reason why the native had not chosen music in her master's and PhD. So if you go back to Wikipedia and look at her education history, you will notice that she had first joined her bachelor's degree in music with an intention to become a pianist. That means get a master's in music or a PhD in music or something like that. But after some time, her intention changed, and she had chosen international politics as her alternate major. Remember the reason why she had changed from music to alternate to international politics. First music deal is Venus, but alternate major international politics is deals is when you hear the word international, that means it is pertaining either intention for the NATO has a career in out in a foreign land, or have a career that will have a direct communication with foreign nationals. When I go deep into her other charts, I will tell you more in detail why the native has chosen her PhD in international politics. Now, let's go back and look a little bit before we go further, a little bit about the 10th house, sun in the 10th house. Before I move forward, I just want you to say that if you look at this chart, there are three planets that are exalted. Look at it. Saturn is exalted in 10th house, which is career. Mars is exalted in the first house, which is self. And as if that is not sufficient, you have the third planet, Jupiter. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. Look at Jupiter. Jupiter is the lord of the third house, house of communications, and is in exalted position. And above all, Jupiter is the Karaka for higher education. So an exalted Jupiter is the main reason for this. I should say it's one of the reason why this NATO had a desire to pursue higher education all the way up to PhD. And now comes the drawbacks in this chart. First and the foremost, I would say the biggest drawback this NATO has is Sun debilitated in 10th house. Even though the NATO has a career pertaining to either directly or indirectly related with government, because Sun is debilitated in the 10th house, most of the time it indicates that though the NATO reaches a highest position in government or any other sector or industry that has a direct contact with the government, the NATO will always work under someone. That means the NATO cannot become the in the government hierarchy. The NATO can never become the topmost. That was the reason why when the NATO had chosen the career in government as the Secretary of State, even though there are thousands of people under her, working under her, she still has to report to someone. That someone is the president of the country. Now that I had explained about the chart, just looking at the planets, the planetary position lordships, let me take this opportunity and to explain the same stuff from a different perspective. This is based upon the stars or nakshatra. First and the foremost, what we need to do is you look at the fourth house lord. Fourth house is basic education. So let's go and look at the fourth house lord. The fourth house lord is Mars. Mars is in exalted position in the first house. That means the fourth house lord is very, very powerful when it comes to basic education. Now let's go and look at the nakshatra, in which star constellation is the Lord Mars is residing. If you look at in the chart, Mars is the 4th and the 11th house lord, and Mars is residing in Shravana Nakshatra. And Shravana Nakshatra, okay, let me say it. Moon, the Janma Nakshatra, first of all, the Janma Nakshatra is Punarvasu. So, with respect to Janma Nakshatra Punarvasu, Shravana Nakshatra is totally bad. That tells you that whatever the Mars
wants to do in the 4th house, it cannot do it. That's the one reason why I personally think that the Nehru did not choose a subject pertaining to Mars. Like Mars deals with the chemicals, weapons, legal. When I say legal, the criminal lawyers, attorneys, something like pertaining to criminals, or law and order, like the police, or something pertaining to law and order. If you look at the Nehru's early education, the Nehru has never chosen, had not chosen to pursue her education in that direction, because the exalted Mars, even though it is exalted and it is having a direct aspect on the 4th house which it owns, from that is from the Lagna, but from when you look from moon, that is the Nehru's mind, the Janma Nakshatra, with respect to Janma Nakshatra, Mars, whichever star nakshatra that Mars is residing, is not a friend to the Janma Nakshatra. So the Nehru's mind will never go in that direction to pursue a basic education. Now let's go to the 5th house, which is advanced education. The 5th house lord is Venus, and Venus is residing in Visakha Nakshatra. And wait a minute, Visakha, the ruler for Visakha Nakshatra is Jupiter. Remember, Jupiter is the Karaka for higher education. So Venus is residing in the nakshatra owned by Jupiter. Now let's go back and look at what is the relationship between the Visakha Nakshatra and the Janma Nakshatra. With respect to the Janma Nakshatra, Visakha Nakshatra is not good, period. There is nothing more to say here. It is not at all good. That means the basic education that the Nehru had, anything that is that resembles Venus, Jupiter, the Karaka for higher education, will not let that happen. What I mean to say is that Venus is responsible for basic education pertaining to a music, creativity, something dealing with entertainment industry or a fashion industry, something with music, arts and entertainment, something like that. The NATO might have an interest initially to move in that direction, but because the Venus is residing in the nakshatra owned by Jupiter, and because with respect to Janma Nakshatra, the relationship between the Janma Nakshatra and the nakshatra that Venus is residing is bad, the Nehru's mind will not stick in that direction. That's the reason why you see the Nehru has registered to pursue bachelor's degree in music with an intention to become a pianist, but after some time the Nehru's mind has changed. This is very important, why you see that the Nehru's mind has changed and deviated away from music and went into a subject that is something peculiar at that time. I'll tell the reason why. Just wait for some time. Now let's go and look at the Karakas. Mercury is the Karaka for basic education. We all know that. And if you look at it, Mercury is residing in Swati Nakshatra. And see, who is the ruler for Swati Nakshatra? It is Rahu. Rahu indicates that whatever the Rahu will make the NATO to go in a direction that is against the social norms, period. What it is, we will talk about later. But because Mercury is the Karaka for basic education, Rahu has forced the NATO to choose a education, something that is against the social norms during that period. Now, when you look at her, the NATO, during the period that she was in her bachelor's degree, there's a Cold War going on between US and Soviet Union. Soviet Union was still there. So when you look at her, she had shown interest in international politics with some emphasis on Soviet Union. politics in Soviet Union period. See, as I said earlier, Rahu has made her to direct her educational career in such a way that it is against the social norms at that period. Now, when you look at Rahu, the Swati Nakshatra, the relationship between Swati Nakshatra and the Janma Nakshatra Punarvasu, when you look at it, their relationship is very good. That means the basic education, in whichever the direction that Rahu makes the native to think about, and because it is Janma Nakshatra means moon, mind. So Rahu has altered the native's mind to go in a direction which is against the social norms at that period, and fortunately the relationship between the nakshatra owner, Swati nakshatra owner Rahu, and the Janma nakshatra Punarvasu is very good. So the native had a positive attraction towards that side. And if you look at it, the moon is residing in Punarvasu, which is owned by Jupiter. So the Jupiter is a Karaka for higher education. This was one reason why, when you look at it, the basic education has given a direction towards something abnormal, and because Jupiter is the Karaka for higher education, this Jupiter has made sure that in whichever the direction the native has gone, the native will move forward for her advanced degree. If Jupiter was not the Karaka for higher education, if moon is not residing in the nakshatra owned by Jupiter or something else, I am sure the native might have done her bachelor's degree in international politics and music, double major. But because if the Jupiter is not the owner of the nakshatra that moon is residing, the native might have changed her major or done master's degree somewhere else, depending upon where the moon was residing. This is just a hypothetical possibility. So let's go and look at what's happening to the higher degree. And now the question comes is higher education. Jupiter is the Karaka for higher education, and the most fortunate part here is for this native, Jupiter is exalted. That's the beautiful part for this native. And now look at the exalted Jupiter. Where is Jupiter residing? In which nakshatra is Jupiter is residing? Jupiter is residing in Pushya, Pushyami or Pushya, depending upon if you are in South India, Pushyami or Pushya. And if you look at the ruler for Pushyami, the ruler is Saturn, Bob. Remember, Saturn is the first house lord residing in the 10th house, and Saturn is exalted. Look at this, how the amazing combination that made the native to pursue a master's degree and then a PhD in a subject that is not normal during her era. And that's the reason why when you look at any person's educational career, just by looking at the 4th house and the 5th house is not sufficient. You have to look at the first house, which is the self, first house from Lagna, Rashi Lagna, and the first house from Chandra Lagna. Because Rashi Lagna, as I said earlier, Rashi Lagna is your destiny. You may reach your destiny somewhere, but Chandra Lagna is your mind. So if they both don't match, if they both are the same, then what you have in your mind will be your destiny. That's it. So let's go and look at Janma Nakshatra for Jupiter. Jupiter is in Pushya, and when you look at Pushya with respect to the Janma Nakshatra is Punarvasu owned by Jupiter. With respect to Janma Nakshatra, Punarvasu, Pushyami is very, very good. That's it. There is the reason why the native had no issues when it comes to even master's degree and PhD. And I just read in Wikipedia that she got her PhD at a very, very young age, and that too from a reputable university. Stanford, I think it is Stanford University, yeah, a reputable university from United States. Now that I completed the analysis for the higher education and advanced education for this Nehru from the planet position and the nakshatra position, let's go and look at the dasa systems. Just because your planets and the nakshatras are very good, that doesn't mean that you will get what you are planning to do it. Your dasa system should also cooperate with you, with you in the sense in the Nehru. And so for this Nehru, the most important thing, and I'm really amazed to see when I saw this chart, and I'm excited also, is that for this Nehru, according to Vimsotiri Dasa, Saturn Mahadasa started in March 1964 and it went all the way up to March 1983. If you go and look at Wikipedia, this is the period when by 1981 or 82 she got her PhD. That means during the Saturn Mahadasa, the Nehru has done all her education to the extent possible. And now the question comes is why? Usually Saturn, people say that, according to me, even in me, sometimes say that Saturn doesn't provide the Nehru any positive stuff. But look at here, the Saturn is the first house lord, exalted in 10th house, co-joined with so many 3 other important planets. And if you look at Saturn, the Saturn's third aspect is on house owned by Jupiter and where Rahu is residing. Remember Rahu is residing and how Rahu played a vital role for the Nehru when it comes to choosing her interest subject, which subject she wants to do her master's and PhD. So remember that. And then Saturn's 7th aspect is on the 4th house. And another important thing I would like to show is Saturn's 10th aspect. Saturn's 10th aspect is on Jupiter. So Jupiter is a Karaka for higher education, and Saturn's third aspect is again on the house owned by Jupiter. This amazing stuff makes the Nehru to move forward without any problems. Usually whenever there is any sort of relationship between Saturn and Jupiter, one thing is guaranteed, as I keep saying in all my previous presentations, there will be some disappointments and hurdles. So let's go and first and look at this Nehru. Because Saturn's 10th aspect is on Jupiter, what sort of disappointments or hurdles did the Nehru have? Remember, this is her education, this is the age for her to continue her education. So any disappointments or hurdles should pertain to her educational career, educational period. When you look at Wikipedia, after getting her master's degree, I heard that she stopped her education for some time, worked, and then started her PhD. Look at it, there's a break in her education. That is because this Nehru had Saturn had a 10th aspect on Jupiter. And if you look at it, if I remember correctly, it was somewhere between 1976 through 1980. I don't know exactly the Wikipedia. I haven't gone detail in that. But if you look at it, it was Saturn/Rahu, Saturn Mahadasa and Rahu Antardasa, or Saturn's Mahadasa and Mars Antardasa. When you look at it, Saturn has a relationship with Mars because Saturn is having a direct aspect on the house owned by Mars, and Mars is residing in the house owned by Saturn. So there is a slight relationship between those two. That and Saturn is having a third aspect on Jupiter, house owned by Jupiter, where Rahu is residing. So I would say that between 1977, between 1976 through 1980, somewhere during that period, the Nehru had obstructions, so many obstructions, or had stopped her education and pursued some career, and then came back to do her PhD. This is one thing that I would like to emphasize based on the Vimsotari Dasa. And now let's go and look at the Yogini Dasa. If you look at the Yogini Dasa, the Yogini Dasa, by the time the Nehru had completed her master's degree and was thinking of and had worked for some time and then came back to do her PhD, that was at that time Mercury Mahadasa is running between 1976 and 1981. So Mercury / Mercury, which is 76 through 77, is the period where I think the Nehru had stopped her educational career and went for work for some time and then came back and started her PhD. So you got to look at what was the reason, what could be the reason. First of all, Saturn and Jupiter relationship has created the hurdles that you can see, that is by default, and Saturn and Mercury are residing in the same, in the 10th house, and from Rashi Lagna, Mercury is the lord of the 6th and 9th houses. 6th house deals with employment conditions and 9th house deals with Bhagyasthanam or earnings. So something went wrong in the Nehru's mind, something, we don't know what exactly it is, that the Nehru had decided to stop pursuing her PhD after a master's degree, worked for some time, made some money. The question here is not how much money she made. The point here to be noted is that because Mercury is the lord of the 6th house, employment conditions, and lord of the 9th house, earnings, and is residing in the 10th house, indicates that Mercury has made this Nehru to tilt towards employment side and then work for some time. Once in the Mercury Mahadasa Saturn came into picture, that is during 77 August, I am sure she might have decided to stop the working and then joined her PhD. I am sure about that part of it. That's the period between 1977 August and 1978 June. I am sure that something happened in her mind and she left the job and went back to academics and pursued her PhD. Remember, Saturn, the first house lord, has already decided what the Nehru should do and how. And any small interruptions in the life is, if the interruption is not from Saturn, then those are all temporary. They just happen for some time, and once the role of Saturn is activated or Saturn becomes stronger, which I should have gone through the transit analysis, which I didn't do it because already there is a lot of stuff that I was talking about this, so I haven't done the transit analysis for this during her educational career. Those who are interested can go to and for this chart go see where is transit Saturn and transit Jupiter and transit Jupiter. These two are residing during that time. That might give them an idea why between 1975 when she got her master's degree and 1981 she got her PhD. So between 1975 and 1981, why the Nehru had chosen to stop her education, pursue some career, and then came back and did her PhD. Now, one more thing I would like to say here is Moon. Moon is residing in Punarvasu, the nakshatra, and Moon owned by Jupiter. And if you look at it from Chandra Lagna, Moon is having a direct aspect on the house owned by Jupiter. So Moon is in the star owned by Jupiter. Moon is having a direct aspect owned by the Jupiter. And if you look at the Vimsottari Dasa, starting 1980 through 1983, Saturn and Jupiter Mahadasa is running. And in my opinion, this is just my opinion, that this might be the reason. See, the Moon is your mind. So the Nehru was so determined that she has to determined to get a PhD, and it was during this period, because of the Moon having so much strong bondage with Jupiter, the Karaka for a higher education, and because the Vimsottari Dasa is Saturn / Jupiter, Saturn is a first house lord exalted. This native determination and the native's destiny has coincided, resulting in her to get a PhD in the subject. Remember the subject, that's very important here. The subject is something that is not normal during that era. And I heard that she did something pertaining to Soviet Union, international relationships or international politics, something pertaining to Soviet Union or Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia, I don't know what it is called right now. So Czechoslovakia and Soviet Union. So this is during the Cold War period. She had chosen a topic that is not normally acceptable. Very rarely I go through the additional dasa systems for any native, but I'm so excited about this native's chart that whatever the software program that I wrote it, and I used that software program and calculated a different dasa system, and this is called Dasapati and Antar Dasapati dasa system. And I think I read this about a little bit about this dasa system in 1953 or 54 Astrological magazine, and fortunately I got a book about this, how to do the dasa system for using this dasa system, how to calculate it in my native language. I translated it into English and then I put that one in Scribd website, so that those who are interested to learn this dasa system, they can go to Scribd website, search for my name, and they will see it the article titled Dasapati and Antar Dasapati dasa system calculations. So let's go and look at the Antar Dasapati and Antar Dasapati dasa calculations, especially during her education period. That's all, means age. So if you look at it, according to Dasapati and Antar Dasapati, Venus period started in April 1974 and went all the way up to April 1981. This tells you that Venus, the fifth house lord, who has co-joined with the exalted first house lord Saturn and the Mercury and Sun, that Venus is the period that is running during her peak time when it comes to education. I think by 1970, I think in 75 she got her master's degree. So in 74, 73, 74 she might have got her bachelor's degree. And if you look at it, that by the time she got her bachelor's degree, it was the Mercury period running, Mercury Mahadasa running according to this dasa system. And we all know Mercury, the Karaka for basic education, and I have told how how strong Mercury is and how strong her basic education path is. And because of all those reasons, and based on this dasa system too, there is no issue for this native from a education perspective to complete her bachelor's degree. She completed her bachelor's degree without any problem, and then the Venus Mahadasa began, and in Venus Mahadasa she first completed her master's degree. As you know it, by 1975-76 she completed her master's degree. So that means in the Venus Mahadasa it will be either Venus Mahadasa and Mars Antardasa or Venus Mahadasa and Jupiter Antardasa. I am more inclined to say that the native completed her master's degree in Venus Mahadasa and Jupiter Antardasa, which starts in 1975 June. So give or take plus or minus 1 month here and there. So between April 1975 and July 1975, the native has completed her master's degree. And the primary reason is here Venus Mahadasa and Jupiter Antardasa. Venus is the lord of the fifth house, higher education. Jupiter is a Karaka for higher education, and you can see here what happened. Now let's go and look at when did the native got her PhD. I'm not interested to say figure it out during the remaining period why she had gone she left her education and did some into the workforce. But here, because the whole presentation is emphasizing on the astrological reasons for her to achieve such a highest degree during that era. Remember, she's an African American girl during the period where the opportunities, first of all, for a woman is less, and if it is a African American, it's further less. And so during that period, during that era in United States, she had got her master's degree from one of the most reputable university in the world. So I am emphasizing only her educational age and doing the astrological reasoning for that. Now going back to her, the reason for PhD, Venus Mahadasa is still running. It is all the way up to April 1981, and it is Venus slash Mercury. Somebody might ask why, how Mercury had made her get her PhD. If you go and look at the first D1 chart or the Rashi chart, Janma Kundali, Mercury is in the 10th house, and Venus owns the 10th house. So she, whatever the education that she was doing during that period, prior to Venus Mercury, which is Venus slash Sun and Venus slash Moon. So whatever the education that she was pursuing between 1980 September and 1981 April, Mercury has to provide a successful completion. And I'm so strongly saying has to provide. Mercury has no other option left there, because number one, Mercury is the lord of the 6th and 9th house. The 6th house is employment conditions, 9th house is Bhagyasthanamo or earnings. Mercury has co-joined with Mercury is residing in the 10th house and co-joined with the strong exalted Saturn, who is the first house lord. And in the Graha Yuddha or planetary wars, Saturn won. So Saturn is the one who has to tell Venus, Mercury and Sun what to do. And Saturn, being the first house lord, will make sure that Mercury listens to what Saturn said and make sure that Mercury will not create any trouble for the native, so that the native can complete her education, and an education that will have a path for her career. And if you look at her career path, I don't want to divert from here, but if you look at her career path, she was in academics for some time, then went into government, and then went back to academics. That's all I want to talk about it. Now, the most important part is the Venus. Again, one more time in this chart, Venus, because Venus period is the one that is the reason for the native to get her master's degree and PhD. So if you look at it, Venus, fortunately Venus is residing in Visakha Nakshatra, okay, which is owned by Jupiter, which is indicating that the 5th house lord is residing in the nakshatra owned by Jupiter, who is the Karaka for higher education. This is the strongest bondage you can see for a person, and this is one of the reasons. There are plenty of other reasons I explained earlier why the native could pursue her higher education without any issues. When I say issues, I didn't mean to say the family related issues or the financial related issues or social economic related issues. It's just the issues in the sense she never ditched her education or failed in her education or had any bad remarks in her educational period. So if you look at it, this is the reason why the 5th house lord Venus residing in Visakha Nakshatra owned by Jupiter, and Jupiter being the Karaka for a higher education, it's impossible for the native to change her mind away from her goal of pursuing higher education. It's impossible. The planetary, unless the dasa systems, if the dasa systems are not good, then there is a slight possibility. Otherwise, it's impossible, because the Vimsottari Dasa, Yogini Dasa and Dasapati, Antardasapati Dasa systems, all the 3 Dasa systems, when you look from any of these 3 Dasa systems, the Mahadasa and Antardasa during that period is so cooperative for the native that the native had never thought of saying, I'm done with this education, let me get out of this university. She never said that. But there's a small drawback for this native, which I would like to tell this I decided to tell at the end, because this is the last one for my presentation. If you look at it, the native started her education with a bachelor's degree in music, with the aim of getting a bachelor's degree in music. That means Venus, pertaining to Venus, or the subjects that are directly related to Venus. Now, after some time, the native lost her desire towards music and went and turned completely into a different direction, which I explained earlier, because of the Rahu, the importance of Rahu. And now when you look at the nakshatra, Venus is in Visakha nakshatra. Unfortunately, moon being in Punarvasu nakshatra, and the relationship between Visakha nakshatra and Punarvasu nakshatra is not good. That's the reason why the native lost her desire to pursue higher education in music. So what I am trying to emphasize here is that just because when you see Venus being in 5th house lord and 10th house lord and in 10th house, residing in 10th house, does not mean that the native will is surely move towards an education pertaining to Venus, which is music, art, entertainment, something like that, and will have a career that is pertaining to Venus, which is music, art, entertainment, fashion industry, whatever you want to take it, any of those things, subsets. So this is the reason why I had chosen this native chart specifically, not just because there were 3 exalted planets and 1 debilitated planet. The bondage between the 4th house, its lords, planetary lords, and the bondage between the 4th and 5th houses, when you look from the nakshatras or then the Janma nakshatras, there are a lot of things that tells you that this native chart is unique. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I'm hoping that you might have learned something new. If there is anything that you wish to know more about this native from an astrological perspective, please drop a message, and I will try to do my best. If I can explain you, I will surely explain you. Have a good day. Thank you.